So those of you, many of you are familiar with how and what I share about these meetings, and I've been speaking a lot of late about sort of distinguishing two perspectives, and I talk about the two broad perspectives of how life can be experienced um, in different ways. And I wanted to talk this morning and explore this morning one way to think about these two broad perspectives, and that is the one we're most familiar with, which I don't tend to speak about very often because we're so familiar with it. We could say is the perspective, the belief, the idea that something's wrong, that something's missing, that something else other than what's here right now has to happen. And that notion that something's not quite right, that something's out of place, that something is incomplete, is fuels really quite a lot of our movement in life. And it's interesting how I think the spiritual traditions unfortunately end up reinforcing this often. We have lots of pictures, if we've been consuming different spiritual teachings, as I imagine many of you have, of pick whatever it is that you might be looking for in a spiritual context: freedom, enlightenment, realization, and so on. With lots of ideas of what that might look like, and it's very possible that we're imagining, maybe even right now, that whatever it is we're looking for somehow isn't here at this moment, isn't it? And so therefore we're kind of subtly or not so subtly trying to make something happen. And it can be quite subtle. But that's the perspective of there's something not quite right about this instant, this moment, the presence of experiencing just as it is. And the other perspective is just 180 degrees, that this instant is pure perfection, exactly as it is. Nothing is missing, nothing is incomplete, nothing needs to be added to this moment. That this moment is utter fulfillment and nourishment and wholeness and completeness, just as it is. I often use the ocean wave metaphor, and it's relevant here. If you think of reality as a whole, envision reality as a whole, and imagine it as the whole of the sea. I love that metaphor for so many reasons, but one is, water is fluid, isn't it? And it displays that fluidity constantly. And reality, the reality of this moment, is pure fluid, pure unstoppable flow and fluidity and movement, isn't it? So here's this sea of experiencing, this fluid sea of experiencing. And the effort to try to make something happen, which often occurs in the process of doing some sort of spiritual practice, which presumably is why we're doing some spiritual practice in the first place, is to make something happen. We're doing something, oftentimes. And again, it can be subtle. It's this sense of taking this field of experiencing, this sea of experiencing, and trying to reshape it into something else, trying to transform it into something else. But the funny thing about that is that you take whatever this is and you try to reshape it into something else, and it remains what it is. In that sense, it's unchangeable. It's always reality. It's always this sea of experiencing, no matter what way we try to reshape it and reform it into something we imagine would be better. And as understandable as that impulse is to try to transform this into something we imagine would be more fill in the blank, more free, more awakened, more joyful, more open, more love-filled. Again, many ways we might hope that this could be more of something. That ends up creating unrest, essentially, unease. It can be subtle again, but we're pushing against what's here. We're expending energy to try to transform this into something else that we imagine would be better. You know, the old grass is greener on the other side idea. I was listening in on a conversation much like this the other day, and you know, many questions were being posed to the person facilitating the meeting, and really one after another in different forms and shapes. The questions were essentially about this very point that I'm bringing up right now, which is the idea that I'm lacking awakening, I'm lacking freedom, I'm lacking enlightenment, and I'm missing something. So then we don't want to search for something else other than what's right here. But what's right here is the explosive, radiating, shining forth of the mystery. Right now, just as it is. No matter what the shape of it is, no matter how it's being described or defined. So just as we're sitting here, what is it like to just relax completely? Relax the mind completely. Relax any effort to try to transform the shape of the moment into some shape you imagine would be better. Just to relax that effort completely. No need to make anything happen. No need to stop anything from happening. And as we just relax the effort to transform the moment, to try to regulate the flow of experience in any way, shape, or form, we just relax any effort. The shining of reality, the radiance, the presence of whatever this is, it can't really be said. It's beyond words, beyond definitions. It continues to be here. Life continues to be here, doesn't it? Continues to shape itself in all the ways that it shapes itself. Continues to shine in all the different ways that it shines. Continues to take the particular momentary forms and appearances that it takes. Unstoppably, this flow. from this perspective, this other perspective, everything is the flow of reality, isn't it? Everything is the flow of this sea of life, of experiencing. Nothing is higher or lower or better or worse or more awakened or less awakened, or there's no hierarchy whatsoever. There's no greener grass. It's all brilliant green, greener than green, brighter than bright, just as it is. The very flow of reality, left as it is pure benefit, pure ease. Pure potency. You know, the word purity sounds like a very kind of judgment, you know, pure as opposed to impure. If you think about the word itself, when something is pure, it doesn't contain anything else other than that particular, you know, it's pure, whatever the substance is, it's pure that and nothing else, right? That's what makes it pure. But that's a perfect description of reality, isn't it? It's pure because there's nothing else but reality. It's pure. There isn't an alternative. There's just reality. There's just, not to minimize it. There's only reality. So the effort to try to contrive our way into well-being is shown to be unnecessary. Because the beingness of the moment itself is pure well-being. And to come back to the wave ocean metaphor, we are arguably, you know, as life forms, as apparent autonomous life forms, we are like waves, you know, rising up out of the sea of life somehow, magically, mysteriously. How that has come about even on a biological level. But we're rooted in the root of all of this, aren't we? We're the emergence of some thing that is unnameable and inseparable from that, just as the wave is absolutely inseparable from its basis, the sea, out of which the wave has emerged. But that ordinary perspective, you know, that imagines something's out of whack, and so we're going to do something to try to rectify the situation. The notion that there's some problem that needs to be solved, that there's something wrong. But then the waves that we are set about to try to fix the shape of the moment. But the moment is all the flow of the sea, right? So it's like the wave is the wave is trying to return to its root, its roots, its ground, its basis by manipulating the flow of experience, which makes no sense because the flow of experience is the basis of all of this. You see what I mean? It doesn't require manipulation. And isn't it so restful to just relax that effort to try to transform the moment? There's just this pure, the pure openness of reality. Nothing blocking anything else. Just absolute unbounded openness. What is that like, to just relax the habit we tend to have as humans to turn this into something we imagine would be better? And instead just feel this flow of the presence of what is, always changing, unstoppable in its discontinuity, its transience, its dynamism. Impossible to stop that. I mean, try to stop this moment from shape shifting into its next appearance, isn't it? It's just this flow, this beautiful flow of shape shifting, appearing, disappearing, appearing, disappearing. But all of it, the flow of the ground, flow of life, the flow of, I mean, no word suffices, because what is life? What is life made of? There's no answer to that question. Very curious, you feel it's palpable, the presence of reality. It's palpable, isn't it? It's here, this beingness, this existence, this presence. No, it's can't be doubted, the sense of something here. But what that is, feel that, and it's just a free fall into unknowability as to what that actually is. You never get to the bottom. Oh, there it is. There's life. There is what life is. So it's very curious, isn't it? Something is here, and yet it's impossible to determine what that is. And this that is impossible to determine what it is shines forth as all this stuff that we seem to know what it is. It's so curious. All these things we call thoughts, feelings, sensations, perceptions, memories, each one of them made of this indeterminable, unresolvable stuff, reality, the beingness. But this simple practice of relaxing the mind, relaxing the tendency we have, right, to try to reshape the moment, just relaxing that cuts through the hierarchy that we're so accustomed to. It cuts through the notion that this is more God than that. This is more divinity than that. It cuts through that hierarchy and reveals that the singular whole that is moving as all these apparent parts and pieces and distinctive tastes and flavors of reality. To be sure, we seem as humans to prefer certain flavors over others, right? Pleasure over pain and so on. But it's amazing to experiment with leaving the disturbing, discomforting arisings just as they are. Leave them just as they are. And in that, we can discover actually their potency and their benefit, surprisingly enough, because they are the potency of reality. They are the dynamism, the Shakti, the energy of life itself. Those states of mind that we prefer to not have happening. And there's just so many, you could say benefits of that. Again, the ease and the peace and the equanimity and the relaxation that comes from just relaxing, allowing everything to be as it is in your experience. Because of course it can't be any other way than the way that it is. So it makes a lot of sense to just relax, try to make it different, because it's a fool's errand. It can't be different than it is in the moment. And it doesn't need to be different.